That's what Will Rogers said about democracy. Let's see what else we can find about democracy. James Madison. According to the research, James Madison said that democracies have been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and in general have been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their death. In other words, democracy and personal security or the rights of property, they don't go together. They're incompatible. And they have a short life. They don't exist for long periods of time. They don't have longevity. Let's look at a couple more. Okay, let's see here. This is what Winston Churchill said about democracy. He was a criminal anyway, but I'll just read what he said. The best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. In other words, he thought that voters were stupid, and based on their stupidity, that would mean that democracy should not exist for those people. Okay, this is what John Adams had to say about. No, I won't read that one. Let's see. This is what this other person says. Ambrose Pierce says democracy is four wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for lunch. And that's exactly what it is now. And I'll get to why it is that in just a minute. Okay, this is what Thomas Paine said. Thomas Paine, considered to be an American patriot. Thomas Paine said that he was also a writer. He wrote a book called Common Sense. He was involved in the American Revolution, French Revolution. He said that government is best, which governs less or least. Government is best, which governs least. And then he says here, this is James Madison, a quote from James Madison about government in general. He says, knowledge will forever govern ignorance, and a people who mean to be their own governors must arm themselves with the power which knowledge gives. And of course, a lot of people in America are not very knowledgeable. So how can you be a governor of yourself if you're not knowledgeable? Because he says here, knowledge will forever govern ignorance. And you got a lot of ignorant people running around. That's true. And so basically, I just wanted to show you a couple of those quotes about democracy. There's one other one I want to show you that you'll never forget. Let me pull that one up real quick. Let me pull it up real quick. Just a moment.
Take your time, brother. We're here. We're relaxing, enjoying ourselves. Let me just say to everybody who's in the chat room, a lot of funny business going on. The people who block you when you have your own channel, so they can go in and say what they want to say. But I got ways. I just knocked one off a little while ago. It's evident, and there's going to be a big revamping soon, a big reset, a purge of sort. I'm just saying it out loud. There'll be certain social media platforms taken down and built up again exclusively. Like I said, I don't need 1 million people. I just need 1,000 strong who are sincere. And so I've been watching the funny business for a little while, and very soon I'll let it go on a little while. I'm like the cat who watches the mice jump around. That is a mouse on my head. He doesn't believe I'll bite him. You know what I mean? So there's all kind of agents that are real agents, and the agents who are voluntary agents from just their little feelings. You know what I mean? Because this is never going to stop, and this is something that I've committed to, and I will not be outworked, and I will never give up as long as I'm breathing. We're going to do it. And if I get tired, Brother Quako's going to take over, or Mrs. Scurv, or whoever in a circle. So it's like 3 people synergistically working. So, like I said, try to get your sleep, because it's going to be hard to watch me that way as a troll. While I'm sleeping and somebody else takes over. So we're going to make this a 24-hour thing. And there's going to be a lot of things going underground, because they're monitoring us and they're coming at me so many kind of weird ways. So look for things to disappear. It'll be engineered by me, and so the rats will have to run somewhere else. You know, when you set the house on fire, the rats definitely got to run out. So I'm just
That's right.
to be forewarned is to be forearmed. So
That's right.
gonna happen.
That's right.
All right. So yeah, definitely. Go ahead, brother. Just want to say that.
Okay. Back to democracy. I mentioned that democracy. We talked about I think that was a sheep and a wolf deciding on what to have for lunch, and that's what democracy is. Because democracy is really another way of describing mobocracy. Because democracy is basically majority rule. And majority rule, of course, if you have majority rule, you are automatically trampling upon the rights of minority. And that's what democracy is. So democracy is, I get together with two other guys and we want to go steal another guy's car. That's democracy. The person who gets his car stolen is in the minority, and we, as the majority, want to plunder his property. That's an example of mobocracy or democracy. That's what democracy is. So I know that they associated other nice things with democracy, other noble things with democracy, but if you strip democracy down to what it really is, then you run from it. So let's see here. Fascism. I think I mentioned fascism, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, actually, yeah, I mentioned fascism. Democracy. Democracy is basically mob rule or rule of the majority. And democracy is very interesting because it was used to replace all the overthrown monarchies by you know who, by Old Testament. The Old Testament overthrew the Hohenzollerns. He overthrew the Tsars. He overthrew the Habsburgs. He overthrew the Kaisers in Germany. He overthrew the crown, all the crown heads of Europe, basically. And when you watch that movie called The Wizard of Oz, the original Wizard of Oz, where you have this wizard that had this wagon, and on the wagon he talked about how he was representing Osiris and Isis, basically to talk about Freemasonry. And then he said on his van it said that something about all the crown heads of Europe. That's what it was talking about. It was talking about the planned overthrow of those European monarchs to be replaced with the desired form of government by the Old Testament plutocrat manipulators, which would be democracy. Because with democracy, you can finance your own hand-picked puppets. You can finance your honey-trapped, compromised, blackmailable, compliant hand-picked puppets. When I say honey-trapped, I mean those who are trapped in an illicit relationship, like, for example, Woodrow Wilson was trapped in an adulterous relationship with a woman, and he was blackmailed by one lawyer, Samuel Untermeyer, into eventually signing legislation that led to the creation of the Federal Reserve, which is, oppressing the people, fiscally oppressing the people today. So, with democracy, they can control politicians with pedophilia, because a lot of politicians are also controlled by pedophilia, because they have these people, they lure them to certain spots. They introduce children, and they have sex with these children. They phototape or they videotape these politicians having sex with the children, and now they have something over on the politician, but the politicians have to do their bidding. That's democracy. So the word democracy comes from the root word demos, E-M-O-S. And demos basically means common people. That's people of an ancient Greek state. That's what the word demos means, because it's the same root word that you find in, say, epidemiology. Epidemiology is the study of the people's health or the public's health, because the word demos basically means people or common people. So, and then of course you have the word republic. Republic is the opposite of a democracy. A republic is the rule of law. In a republic, the rights of the majority are protected. So in the case of me and my two guys that want to go and rob this guy and take his car, well, in a republic, we can't do that, because the rights of that minority, that single individual, will be protected. And so remember that Pledge of Allegiance, where it goes, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic. Two separate entities. The republic is somehow subordinated to the United States. So obviously the republic or the Republican form of government is secondary to this entity that is not described as the United States. So it's opposite. Basically, a republic is opposite of big government. You hear these politics using these terms like big government, bloated government, you have to trim the fat off government, things like that. That's what they're talking about. Because we're supposed to have a Republican form of government. And when I say the Republican, I'm not referring to the Republican Party. Republican Party and the word republic or Republican in the sense that I'm using it has nothing to do with Republicans. Republic simply means limited government, where the rights of the majority are protected. And then you have the other word, fascism. How are we doing sound-wise, Lance?
Sound is perfect, brother.
Good.
It's perfect. If for some reason you ask me about the sound and I don't answer, it's because I just drank 3 big mugs of some hot cinnamon tea, and it's so delicious I can't stop. Shameless plug. It's not even like something that sponsors me or anything, but man, it's Harney and Sons. That's who makes it. I'll put up a picture in Instagram and in the community tab here on YouTube. Man, you don't need sugar with this thing, man. When it's hot, it's one thing, but when it cools down a little bit and just warm, it is sweet.
But the recipe, yes, it is naturally sweet.
Oh man, yes. For the quick love, we all drink it. I'm sitting up here getting drunk off of this thing, so I will be leaving every now and then. So if I don't answer, just check me back in a minute. I'll be back. So you know what's obviously happening. But go ahead, brother.
Okay. There's one other quote I wanted to read about democracy. I forgot to read it.
Yes.
It was written by Alexander Fraser Tyler. This is one you will not forget. This is what it says. Well, Alexander Fraser Tyttier, Tytier, Alexander Fraser, Fraser. Alexander Fraser Tyler, sorry, or Tytler, Tytler, Yeah, he has a weird name. Anyway, this is what the quote says. And you can compare this to what we have right now. He says, a democracy cannot exist as a permanent form of government. You guys hear that? A democracy cannot exist as a permanent form of government. It can only exist until the voters discover that they can vote themselves largesse from the public treasury, money from the public treasury. From that moment on, the majority always votes for the candidates promising the most benefits from the public treasury, with the result that a democracy always collapses over loose fiscal policy, always followed by a dictatorship. The average age of the world's greatest civilizations has been 200 years. Actually, their civilizations are 200 years. When we follow them, we have short lives, and we don't have longevity either. It says, these nations have progressed through this sequence, from bondage to spiritual faith, from spiritual faith to great courage, from courage to liberty, from abundance to selfishness, selfishness to apathy, from apathy to dependence, from dependence back into bondage. So if you guys want to compare that statement to what we have here, you can imagine where we are in that particular timeline. So now you guys know what a democracy is. They never told you. They tell those terms all the time on TV, and you think it's something nice. But they're talking in code. Okay. So enough about democracy. Let's talk about fascism. What is fascism? You know how they describe it in the history books, where you typically think of Benito Mussolini and Adolf Hitler and the Axis powers in Japan. Those are fascists, right? Basically, what the word fascist means is that's the dictionary definition. Never take their definitions. Always use your own head and your own rational common sense to determine exactly what they're talking about, because they're never going to tell you the truth. You can refer to fascism as a business/government partnership, where basically the business ownership and the private property is allowed. So you're allowed to have private property and you're allowed to have businesses, but really it's controlled by the government. That's fascism. That's what it is. If you're familiar with that book called Atlas Shrugged, there was a movie written about that too. Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. She has a weird name. A-Y-N is her first name.
Yeah.
Last R-A-N-D. Ayn Rand. She's the writer of the Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah, but and she was known as what is the category? Oh God, there was a man.
Dystopia.
Yeah, there was a man who used to come decades ago, and I used to work at Home Depot. There was an older white man who used to come into the floor and wall department where I worked, and he wasn't even looking for anything, but he just fixated on me. Like he knew I knew something. And he was always telling me about Ayn Rand. He was like getting to be a pest. It was really bad. And he would follow me around, and I looked into certain things. And, I didn't want to insult the guy, but it was like he was telling me how wrong I was, thinking the way I was, whatever. And I always, not to take, give you a little commercial break. I've always got these people who are strong that may not have maybe understood or interested in, and they were like, there's something they kept coming at me with, and I'm like, why me? You know what I mean? There was another guy who came in there and locked eyes with me. He says, you need to read the Kabbalah. You need to read the Kabbalah. You're special. You're different, but you need to read the Kabbalah. And he kept. I'm like, what the heck is this? So go ahead, brother. I'll rant on another tape about that. I got a lot of experiences. Like
Ayn Rand. I'll tell you who she is. Well, in the book, it's also the movie too. The movie is well done, but it's a movie about dystopia. It depicts a dystopian USA controlled by big government, and she's actually said to be a former lover of one of the members of the Rothschild family. Anyway, she commented that in such a partnership, that is, in a fascist government is always the senior dominating power. So basically, fascism is the marriage between big government and big business. That's exactly what fascism is. So I mentioned big government. Big government is the opposite of a republic. A republic, as I mentioned, is limited government. And this concept is important because there's what people have to understand is that there's an inverse or an opposite relationship between government power and individual freedom. So basically, the bigger the government, the less power and authority of the individual.
Yes.
The more power of the individual, the smaller the government is supposed to be. That's when you get to a point where the government is your master and you're the slave, or you're the servant. And it should be in the reverse. They're your employee, but they made you the employee. Then that's a problem. When you fear your government more than you fear the people, then the government is a tyranny. When it's the reverse, then that's the way it's supposed to be. So there's this is why they have the concept of the separation of powers, to keep government agencies within due bounds. But that principle has been completely violated nowadays. And the firewall that allowed that to be breached was basically the ignorance of the people. The firewall has come down. So the common denominator between communism, fascism, capitalism, socialism is one word, and that one word is property. Property. The common denominator between communism, fascism, capitalism, socialism is property. Property and how it's used. Of course, in a capitalist system, you own private property. In a fascist system, you own private property, but the government tells you how to use it. They tell you that you have a car, right? But you have to pay taxes on the car. That's fascism. They tell you that the car is yours, but you have to keep paying for license fees and whatnot. That's fascism. You own your house free and clear, right? But you still have to pay. There's zoning type rules that you have to adhere to. That's fascism because you own the property, but they tell you how to use it. That's what fascism is. So communism, of course, the government owns all property. Socialism, pretty much the same thing. The government owns all the property. So the denominator would be property and how it's used. And that's what differentiates those systems. Now, all property is supposedly owned in common under communism. They're supposedly and theoretically, everybody owns everything, right? But of course, you still have that minority clique or that minority parasite elite that does have power, and they live deliciously off the backs of the people wearing their chinchilla coats and whatnot. And so they have their sumptuous, meals and caviar and this and that riding around in their limousines. And the people are, in a whole different boat, living on rations and whatnot. But anyway, most of these models are on what I call the left side of the scale of the so-called socio-political spectrum. So if you can imagine a scale with one side on the far left, and you can imagine a scale, that same scale that's has another side on the far right. On the far left, you'll have totalitarianism, communism, plutocracy, oligarchy, monarchy, theocracy, autocracy, authoritarianism, corporatocracy, fascism, martial law, military rule, same thing, dictatorship. All that will be on the left, on the far left. And of course, socialism would be next to that. And of course, democracy is a kissing cousin of tyranny. So democracy will be next to that too. That's why they say democracy is on the left. And then you have people using the term far left. That means they're closer to communism, closer to totalitarianism, closer to plutocracy, closer to oligarchy, closer to monarchy, closer to theocracy. And back to monarchy, I didn't talk about that. We have a monarchy too, because in a monarchy, that's when you have people that descend from kings and queens, So it could be said that we have a monarchy in the sense that when you look at the presidential gene pool, they're all related. Somehow, somewhere, they're related to each other. So how can that be unless they're from a monarchy or from the same hereditary line or bloodline? So on that socio-political spectrum, you have totalitarianism on the left, and those forms of big government on the left. And then on the far right, you have no government. So let's say you have anarchy. So anarchy on the far right, total government on the far left. What's in the middle? In the middle, you would have a republic. Which is what we're supposed to have. And then, of course, you have other ways of describing that political spectrum. You have people using the term centrist, right of center, left of center, left wing, liberal, Democrat, those types of terms, conservative. Well, on the far left side, you have the left wing or the liberal or the Democratic side. And then in the middle, you would have what they call a centrist. And then on the far right, you'd have a conservative, or what they will call a Republican. Okay? And so the Republican will be on the far right. Or I would say ultra-conservative on the far right. Then a Democrat, let's say far left, would be, on the far left or left wing. And then you have those terms they use that they call left of center. So instead of being in the center, it would be not all the way to the left or left wing, but it would be left of center or slightly left of center or closer to the end of that particular spectrum. Then you have conservative, right of center. Instead of being ultra-conservative, they're somewhat less ultra-conservative. They're more moderate. So that's where you get those terms: moderate, centrist, right of center, left of center, those types of terms. Basically, it's just a form of semantic deception to keep you, so that they don't tell you what the heck is going on. So capitalism is really not a government, but it's in one vein you could argue that it's not a type of government, but an economic system. But you could also consider it to be a type of government insofar as it's run by what they call a corporatocracy, or a dictatorship of corporations. So in that sense, a capitalist government run by a corporatocracy could be considered a government in that sense. Although, of course, they would define it as an economic system. What I define capitalism as, my definition, is the religion of money. That's one of my definitions for capitalism. When capitalism goes rogue, as they call it, I've heard people say, "Oh, capitalism has gone rogue. It has done something it's not supposed to do." But basically, when I did my research on capitalism, I looked it up in my very, very large dictionary that had those dictionaries that have 10 different meanings for one word, those old dictionaries, it said capitalism was a system of private property ownership. And it also further said that capitalist systems tend to become monopolistic. Capitalist systems tend to become monopolistic. Basically, they're saying that in the DNA of capitalism, is the predisposition to become parasitic, monopolistic. They go rogue. So that was the definition that I found. So when people use that definition, that when they say capitalism has gone rogue, capitalism is supposed to go rogue because that's embedded in the DNA of capitalism. And so I also refer to capitalism as a religion of unbridled greed, because there's no limit to the amount of greed in capitalism, in the capitalist system. And then you hear these terms that they use when you study economics. If you ever study economics in school or on your own, they use terms like laissez-faire. Laissez-faire means free market. Laissez-faire means leave it alone. The French word that means leave it alone. Don't touch it. Let the market be free. Well, laissez-faire, or this free market that they talk about, everybody knows that's a farce now. Except those people that might be in school that, are imbibing everything that they read and not questioning anything, because of course they're not teaching you how to discern anything. They're not teaching you really how to use your critical thinking skills. They don't really teach you logic. I didn't learn any of this in school. So in the final analysis, this is what I have to say about capitalism. Capitalism is, in the final analysis, it's a form of human sacrifice. For example, Child Protective Services has a monetary incentive to seize X number of children every single day. Child Protective Services has a monetary incentive to seize X number of children every single day. It's paid for by the state, and the state is funded by the federal government. Okay? Whenever you have an issue where you're involved in the suppression of natural cures, like Laetrile for cancer, apricot seeds that are found to cure cancer, Dr. Max Gerson, persecuted and eventually killed, died under mysterious circumstances, the jailing of countless healers, the killing of people in hospitals with these fake ventilators that are suffocating these people to death as we speak. You have Michigan government banning hydrochloroquine for the treatment of this so-called virus, which has been proven to work. Whenever you have humans used as cannon fodder in these innumerable wars to perpetuate capitalism, when you have rampant organ harvesting, which is the high-octane fuel, which I call the high-octane fuel that's needed to feed the capitalist beast. So basically, you've been sacrificed on the altar of capitalism, consumerism, materialism, sacrificed as paycheck debt slaves. When chattel slavery was converted over to the new system, the European system they called it, when chattel slavery was converted over to commercial servitude with capital as the new master, when capital became the new master, after the system was changed over from chattel slavery to commercial servitude, when this led to human beings being traded on this actually led to human beings being traded on the stock market in a state of voluntary servitude. This was a form of human sacrifice. I mean, you can go on and on with this. I mean, when people are subjected to mass layoffs, jobs outsourced by the million, when they are streamlined, right-sized, downsized, or otherwise become a corporate casualty, a victim of corporate criminality, they are sacrificed. Sacrifice on the altar of capitalism. Sacrifice on the altar of corporate profits. Sacrifice on the altar of corporate greed. Sacrifice with nutritionally depleted soil. Sacrifice with devitaminized soil. Sacrifice with demineralized soil. Sacrifice with hybridized seeds and GMO seeds. Not to mention insecticide laced and bug sprayed produce that causes degenerative disease. All of this amounts to human sacrifice. all of this. So if capital is central to the definition of capitalism, then everything else, including the more important and weightier human concerns, are always subordinated to that evil focal point. So if the primary consideration in that system is always quantified in terms of dollars and cents, or the quote-unquote bottom line, or places undue emphasis on cost concerns, then this demonstrates that the monetary issue is superior to issues of human betterment and well-being. This is a form of human sacrifice. So since humans are the first casualty in a cold-blooded capital-centric economy, because profits are sacrosanct and flesh and blood is blasphemous and profane, whenever you have a situation where mega corporations are endowed with powers that eclipse ordinary humans, powers that allow them to indiscriminately pollute, powers that allow them to instigate endless resource wars. When you endow corporations with these types of superhuman powers, then these marauding Frankenstein monsters will eventually, predictably, run roughshod over its human hosts, as they already have. This is human sacrifice a la capitalism, no matter how you choose to characterize. So communism, I think I define communism. Communism, they define as a totalitarian government where the state owns all of the means of production, the factories, the farms, the machinery, the equipment, all of the means of production and distribution. They own the trucks, the train lines, the boats, the planes. The state owns all of the means of production and distribution. According to Karl Marx, this is the final stage of Marxist theory. Communism has different stages that lead up to communism. Basically, this whole idea of communism was cooked up by that bearded Luciferian fraud called Karl Marx, and he didn't even believe in communism. As a matter of fact, if you do the research on this man, you'll find out that he invested in the stock market, which was supposed to be owned by the bourgeoisie, which he supposedly shunned. And he also lived on the largesse of capitalist Frederick Engels. So here this man is preaching capitalism for the masses, but privately engaging in preaching communism for the masses, but engaging in capitalist behavior privately. And then you have terms like proletariat, bourgeoisie, dictatorship, dictatorship of the proletariat. That never happens, by the way. That's when the state is supposedly magically wither away and all the goods would be equally distributed to everyone, which never happens. Proletariat will be the little people. Bourgeoisie would be the shopkeepers and the wealthy people that were supposedly the enemies of the state that had to go, that were the bloodsuckers of the poor, that were attacked, like the bourgeoisie are attacked in this country right now, which is why they want to shut down all the retail establishments, which is where a lot of wealth is generated, because they want a two-tier society, no rich, just rich and poor, no middle ground. Because if you're in the middle, you can always graduate to a higher level. They don't want that. That's why they did the shut. That's one of the reasons why they did the shutdown. So we already have these planks. When you think about the communist type of government, and you do your research, you'll already find that we have communist planks or communist platforms already installed in America, and they've been here for a long time. Because you read the Communist Manifesto written by Karl Marx, it talks about 10 different things that he wanted to implement in order to set up a communist system. Number one, he wanted to abolish all private property in land and in the application of rents of land to public purpose. That's already happened in America. Even if you think of the fact that most people are living paycheck to paycheck and most of their money is spent before they even get it, for all intents and purposes, by that definition, or by that measure, private property has already been abolished in that sense. The second plank of the Communist Manifesto talks about a heavy progressive or graduated income tax. Has anybody ever heard of the more you make, the more they take? You make $100,000 a year. That's a graduated income tax. The more you make, the more they take, because they are hostile to the accumulation of wealth. That's why you have property taxes. Property taxes is straight out of the Communist Manifesto because that is a graduated progressive income tax. The more property value you have, the more you're going to pay. Then they talked about in the Communist Manifesto, one of the planks of the Communist Manifesto talked about abolishing the right for people to inherit property. And people may say, well, people still inherit property and property is still passed down. But I say, to counter that, well, yeah, you still inherit property, but the government does have taxes on property that you can inherit. And I'd say that legislation is always a precursor to elimination because if they can legislate how much property you can acquire, eventually they plan to eliminate it. So when you have your property that you inherit, you have to pay the government a piece, and then you can get your piece, but you can't inherit that property free and clear. So the right to abolish all rights of inheritance, they're already working on that. Confiscation of all property of all immigrants and rebels. This is what the communists did. And this is a plank of the Communist Manifesto that has been implemented in America. For example, in the 1997 crime terrorist bill, or when the IRS confiscates property without the process. They refer to someone as a terrorist and they take your property. That's the same thing. And the fifth plank of the Communist Manifesto, they call for the centralization of credit in the hands of the state. What they're talking about in this case is the Federal Reserve, which is what we have, which has centralized all credit in the hands of a non-governmental entity, a private organization run by a group of private financiers that has monopolized the currency. Because if you go and try to use the currency, go and print a piece of paper and put your face on that currency and put $20 on that, and then go in the store and try to spend it. You see, once you be arrested, that's called counterfeiting by their definition. But they have a legal monopoly to counterfeit all day long with the Federal Reserve. And then you have here the sixth plank of the Communist Manifesto calls for the centralization of the means of communication and transportation in the hands of the state. In other words, they want the state to control communication, and they want the state to control transportation. So you've heard of the FCC before, right? The Federal Communications Commission?
Yes.
Federal Communications Act in 1934, they control the airwaves. In order to get a shortwave radio, get on that, you have to have a license. Did you know that? A license to use the airwave. No. Then you've heard of the Federal Aviation Administration, transportation control in the hands of the state. That's communism. And then you had plank number 7, the extension of factories and instruments of production owned by the state. The extension of factories and instruments of production owned by the state. So basically factories and production owned by the state, we have that now. They have what they call collective farms. You know, they have that in the Soviet Union. We have those here in America. And then you have number 8, equal obligation of all to work. The establishment of industrial armies, especially for agriculture. And one of the industrial armies they have is when they pull the woman out of the household and they put her into the marketplace so that she can work and so that they can tax her. That's an industrial army. Then, of course, you have other armies like, you have labor unions, those industrial armies too. And then you have number 9, where they wanted to combine agriculture with manufacturing industries. You've heard of ConAgra. You've heard of Arthur Daniels Midland. And then they had plank number 10, free education for all children in government schools. Free education for all children in government schools. Free education in the public school system. That's what we have. Same thing. But we already have the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto already planted and seeded in America. It's been here for a long time. And yet people talk about living in a democracy and being in a capitalist society. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. Because a lot of them are well-meaning. They just don't know because they've been deceived like everybody else. You know, you live in the matrix. You have to either come out or you have to stay in it. So basically, the question would be, socialism. Socialism. I didn't talk about socialism. Socialism is supposedly the stage is right before communism. Because if you study socialism, communism, they talk about what they call the goals and methods of socialism, the goals and methods is to evolve into that communist state. So it starts with socialism, and socialism would be that pre-communist stage. It's a system of government when private property is owned by the state. Same as communism, basically, to me, because if the source of this vomit emanated from the same sewer, namely from the mouth of Karl Marx, then it's malintention. It's a malintention system based on its origin alone. So I put them, I lump them both of those together. Then, of course, you got military law, which is nothing but martial law. And of course, with the president, didn't he used to have the presidential seal when he would speak, and now the presidential seal has been removed?
Right.
Does that signify we're under martial law? What does that signify? That's language. That's communication. Communicating to people. One thing is for certain, the name of a government is not always so much as important as the substance of that government, of what that entity actually is or what it stands for. Equally important are the people themselves, specifically the mentality of the people. Because you see, tyrants come and tyrants may go, but the one thing that remains constant is the mentality of the people, and that mentality can either reflect ignorance or consciousness. And we can blame, any president for our problems, or we can blame a funky brown-skinned melanated person, or a funky brown-skinned. We can blame boule members or boule-esque types. But our biggest hindrance really is ignorance. So I guess I'll say, in conclusion, there are many confusing and diverse ways to describe different types of governments. Sometimes a government is called one thing, but it's really completely different from its description. Example, a dictatorship calling itself a republic, or like this country, or a communist government referring to itself as democratic, or a political party referring to themselves as the People's Party when they don't represent the people. That happens all over the world. So if you boil things down to their essence, you have either big government on the left, typically tyrannical or limited, or on the other side, you have limited, smaller government in the middle that truly represents people. So you have either big government on the left that's typically tyrannical, or you have limited, smaller government in the middle that truly represents the people. Or you can have government in general. You can speak of government in general terms on one side, and then you can have anarchy on the other side, or no government. That's what anarchy is, no government on the other side. So those are different ways you can characterize government. You can either do it by different diverse classes of government, like I mentioned in the beginning, or you can do it in general terms by describing no government versus government, or anarchy versus government. So what type of government do we have in America? What type of government do we have in America? I think people already know, or they can figure it out. What do we have in this country? I say we have a fusion of different types of governments in America. It's part plutocratic, it's part monarchic, it's part oligarchic, it's part socialist, it's part fascist, it's part, it has communist and other elements. It's big government, it's also bloated government, it's a hybridized hodgepodge under maritime law of the seas, by the way. A hybridized hodgepodge that is moving, no matter what description or what descriptive euphemism or adjective that they employ, moving towards authoritarianism and tyrannical rule. That's where it's moving. And it was planned that way by the Freemasons from the very start. So in a perfect world, which we don't have, but in a perfect world, my choice of government would be, and will be, at some point, African-centered, African-modeled, where decisions are grassroots or consensus-based, based on the popular will, void of top-down mandates, and yes, run by females, as I mentioned in my 5-part series on When Sheroes Ruled the World. It would be matriarchal in structure. It would be Republican in orientation and limited in scope. limited in scope and authority, with no single element having undue powers. And when I say Republican in orientation, I'm not talking about the Republican Party. I'm speaking about a republic in that sense. A republic and a Republican Party are two very different things. And that's pretty much what I wanted to say today.
Amazing.
Just for clarity. How many people live?
We have 226 people combined.
Wow.
There are also some secret hidden ones that are there that we're looking at too, but
Hi, secret.
like Malcolm X said, I see some friends and I see some enemies.
My friends. Mm-hmm.
But
we love you too. You make the world go round.
There you go. It keeps you motivated. You know what I mean? Yeah, but no, it's a lot of great conversation going on in the chat room, bouncing off of what you're saying. And I really have to thank those who are here and what they bring this time of the morning. You know, and we did it on a whim as usual. Most times, you know, you call, you say, "Hey, what are you?"
Always on a whim.
Always better that way. You strike.
It's always on
like
a
a
whim.
ninja. You know what I mean? So it's just amazing what you bring, and you bring it, and it just flows like this, and you know how we're enjoying it, and like I said, the quality of it that's here, the quality minds that are here. You know, it's amazing to me, and I like that drama-free thing where we all come with a certain spirit and we share, and even if we don't always agree, we come to a conclusion where, hey, I didn't know that, or I don't agree, but maybe it is right. So we research it. So we chisel away at what was there, and we match it up, and we grow, because sometimes we're not always right, and we have to find the facts and even dig deeper. So when you're on and when others are on, I learned a tremendous amount, and it's a journey that I'm just so glad to, you know, embark on with everybody here, and it's going to continue to ascend and get higher and get better and more quality and quantity. Like I said, my fist never stopped swinging symbolically. You know, like Sister Carrie Lux says, I'm like an octopus. There's so many arms out there. Carrie Lux says I have octopus arms. Like, you know, I got like 8 arms. I'm always doing something.
Hey, Carrie, how are you, Carrie? I'm nice to see you in the chat. I see her in the chat now.
Yes, she is.
I want to shout out to everybody in the chat. Indigenous Warrior, LG, Carrie Lux. Let's see who else. Sandra, know yourself. Peace and love to you, Sandra.
Yes.
And everybody else.
It's a beautiful thing.
Oh, Carrie Lux. That's great. I hope they enjoyed the. Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation.
Of course. Like I said,
that's my research. You know, I just had to put the pieces of the puzzle together on my own. Because I didn't learn this in school. I never was taught any of this. And I'm from a top tier school.
Wow. See that?
Nonsense.
They even try to control that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You had to go beyond. The school should be the ultimate. The school should be where everybody's bringing information, and the curriculum should evolve to go higher and deeper. But it shows you that while you can get something out of it, you must always look at it as a starting point, and then take that and run with it, and just keep going on your own. But if you think that's it, it's so limited.
No, it's so limited. But like you mentioned about the school system was purposely centralized with the public educational system by the Rockefellers were involved in that, and the Carnegies, and they purposely set that up because they didn't want. Of course, if you want to have a one world model, you have to have conformity of thought. So that's the reason why they set that up. Because prior to that, you had what they call the one world schoolhouse. When they had the one world schoolhouse, people were learning, and they were much more literate than the people that are produced by this the product that comes from that public school system. Much more intelligent. Some of the writing of people back in the colonial times, their language was on a higher level than the people that you have now called Americans. Americans are degraded. Yeah, it's in a degraded state. So, and a lot more people back then were self-educated.
Right.
Self-educated. No, they didn't want that. So that's why I went over that, because I thought it was relevant. Anything I bring, I think is relevant. And I got, that was just political stuff. I like to cover many different areas.
Yes.
Try to keep it short, sweet, concise, makes sense. And so now when these people, I consider myself a decoder, because I had to do the decoding when I was, little, and I had to teach myself. And so now I want to empower other people and let them know these people are just using this specialized nomenclature to basically keep you enslaved. And it's funny how people can hear these words, and like when we had the certain tan president that was in office, he would say certain things, and they didn't even know what he was talking about, and they're clapping, and this guy is voting for, making putting legislation in place to enforce tyranny.
Give me 2 minutes, brother. The tea is talking. I'll be right back. Just keep talking. I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah. So let's see what these comments say here. But I've definitely helped them change their diet. Tracy777. That's great, Tracy. Property and land. One Africa, one race of one people. Diet is very important to our awakening. That's right. Sharon Sawyer. If any of you have read any of my comments in the past, I've said on many occasions that the English language is extremely uncomfortable for me to speak. Yes, it is. The language of the devil, the English language. Full of traps, minefields, and pitfalls, the English language. It's a joke. The land belongs to the so-called government. That's why we pay property taxes. Yep. The problem is centralization. Yep, I talked about centralization, dark matter, in my series on, I did a talk on Nazi Germany and the Polarity War. That was one of the reasons why I did that, Nazi Germany and the Polarity War. It's not so much about Nazi Germany. I just used Nazi Germany as a case study. And I talked a lot about centralization and the problem of centralization and the liberating effect of decentralization and fractionation. So let's see here. That's right. Full power in the hands of the few. Terrible thing. Yep. We are living under all those categories you mentioned. That's right, Jay Edwards. That is correct. We're living in a hybridized version. Hybridized government version. It's a fusion of many different things, many different elements. A hodgepodge. Let's see here. Tracy. South Africa in the house. South Africa in the house. You guys are up late tonight. I hope, Kerry, I hope you enjoyed my talk. I don't know how much you heard of it. Your consumer sacrifice number is your social security number. What? You're right about that, Kerry. Miss Kerry Lux. I'm waiting for you to get back on so I can hear you. Yeah, like I said, I stand by that definition of capitalism. It's a form of human sacrifice. That's exactly what it is. That's not in the dictionary. That comes from me, from my observation, and from from logical deduction. You take their definitions and you apply the real definition to their definitions. They never give you the proper definitions. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say. I want to keep it short. I don't want it to be too long. I want other people to see this and say, okay, I want to jump on this. It's pretty quick. It's not too long. I can listen to that and learn something.
Did you see Tracy777 said, I'm not ready for this to end. More. I know how she feels.
Well, when I teach Tracy, I like to do themes and I like to keep it short, because when I started with my first video about a month ago, when I did my first video, Plandemic, that video was how long was that video? Maybe 2 hours long, and then I think Nazi Germany and the Polarity War, that was about 3 hours long, which was it's a lot of good information, but I think I should have broke that up.
Well,
I really do.
But see, one thing, of course, I love the long ones, and I understand.
I do too.
And I understand your reasoning for saying to break it down in bite-sized pieces. But when you get on that level of understanding where those of us who are in the chat room now and those who may be silent listening, this is so rare to have it broken down like this that it's like, you ever go to, okay, let's break it down like this. Throw a little Scurv analogy down there, right? You have a favorite restaurant that's probably open 3 days out of the week for whatever reason. And when you decide to go there, you eat the food, and the food is so good that you might take 45 minutes on a slow eating thing once you get the food, and you sit there for 3 hours afterward because even though you're full, it's just the ambience of the atmosphere and just being there, and you can fall asleep in that place. It just feels good. It's like, man, I feeded for this all week and I'm here. And after maybe an hour and a half, you order something small, even though you're stuffed. You just want to be all up in it. So, from what I observe and the feedback that I get, look, we don't get this through the so called mainstream media. Many of us, many of those who look like us, don't speak this way and break it down. So this is rare. So this is why even myself, and I don't say me, but the platform that bears my name, I'd rather keep it as a cult following that those who are here strong. You know what I mean? Not where I'm trying to be Mr. Popular and cover everything and do the things that the world says. No, I want to be just like this, where those who are here with us, family wise, are so enthusiastic about, you know, what we bring. You know what I mean? And I can't even say me. I'm just sitting here. I own the restaurant, but I'm damn sure not the chef. And tonight you're the chef. You know what I mean? So I'll even say now that there's a young lady who we were going to do a show in the time, conflicted, but she still wants to do something after we're off. So I'm gonna don't be surprised if we go back on, and I feel up to it. I feel like burning tonight. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So yeah, and
You hardcore.
no, and I never said like, oh, keep it down to this time. If you win another hour, it doesn't bother me, brother. I mean, bother me like, oh, I gotta hurry up, or and I did admit I feel fatigued, but I'm gonna tell you something sick about myself. And of course, I'll let you have the last words. We'll go on as long as you want. But and I figured out why, right? I love to be fatigued. It's strange. It's like being in the gym, and you can identify with this being a bodybuilder, right?
Oh yeah.
Being in the gym, and now you're struggling for those last few reps, and you get them, and you get another one that's more than what you thought. But it's in that struggle that you grow, right? And you break down the tissues. Now, here for me now, when I was training for competition, and I was down in it, say whatever movement it was, it could have been a leg day, it could have been an arm day, it doesn't matter. Each body part has its own personality in a different way that you have to beat it down and approach it, and a mindset that requires some things. And I'm sorry, everybody who's listening, to get off into this. I didn't want to say this for 2 minutes. When you use cables to hit a certain body part, it's a more precise type of thought because you're hitting the deep fibers of the muscle, and you must hit it at a certain angle. See, so this is why the true trainers, the true people who are into this, and I'm saying this for a reason. Like, I know you like free weights, and I know you use cables, but I know by the way we talk that you're not really into machines unless you had an injury with that particular body part, because you have to deal with, okay, you take a bench press, right? It's easy because you go up, you come down, it requires no balance. But when you use dumbbells, and each hand has to balance itself individually, it takes more brain power, therefore more development in the muscle. Another reason why. You go all the way up and you touch, and your pectorals, they crunch, and you go down lower than the chest would allow on a bench press because the bar stops you. With the dumbbells, it goes that you get a further stretch, but most people don't know that. See? So, the full range of motion. So, when we speak on these levels, our family here is on a look. You got Carrie Lux grooving on you here. You got Tracy, Tracy 777. Oh, Sandra, what? You got some scholars up in here, man, who are just like vibing with you. Where?
Like Beyonce say.
Say it again.
Like Beyonce say.
Scrooge Greedy.
Mm.
Yeah, you're right, Scrooge
Oh.
Greedy. I enjoy the fatigue. So going back to the other point, when I would get, say for example, I wanted to get 12 reps with a particular weight, and I'm taking my time,
Mm-hmm.
and I get to
Mm-hmm.
10 and it's kicking my behind. Guess what? I don't try to rush them. I take my time with it. I want to be all up in the
Right.
pain. I want to feel and
Exactly.
earn, and I want to,
True.
I crunch it at the top
True.
of the movement and stretch it out all the way. And
Right.
by getting to that level of fatigue, it lets me
Mm-hmm.
know it registers in my body. So I'm not scared of
Mm-hmm.
attacking the fatigue because it's in the fatigue that you get your win. It's when you're training as a boxer and you push, 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 that's what gets the win. And you get used to being in that place. So the others who are in the comfort zone can't hang with you. Like we said
Mm-hmm.
earlier before, after a competition, the big Italian white boys, they'd run to get pizza. I'd grab a
And
banana
drugs.
or an
And
apple
drugs.
and in drugs,
Yeah.
and I would stay on my diet. I'd rest maybe a day or two and get right back in the gym.
Me too.
So
Me
from
too.
week
I'm
to
always
week,
in constant shape.
right?
I was always in constant shape when
Exactly.
when I was doing that.
So on the intellectual level, on a spiritual
Mm-hmm.
level, if you bring that same attitude and that commitment to want to go deep, not the superficial. I went to church today and I paid tithes because that's not spirituality. That's being
Mm-hmm.
religious, and you're religious in
Yeah.
brushing your teeth. You're religious in combing your hair. Religious means just regularly, right? Because you got
Mm-hmm.
that in there. So I don't want that. I don't want that surface thing. I don't want to play pretend. If I ain't doing it, I'm not doing it at all. I'm not doing it just to keep up or for a look. So I love this. One more year
Mm-hmm.
makes 20 years of grinding online. You
Wow.
know, I'm proud of the content on the website. This is not self promotion. I'm just telling you where I'm coming from. I'm like, man, back in 2004, sleepless
Mm.
nights. 2001,
Wow.
sleepless nights. 2006,
Mm-hmm.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
Woo-wee. Mm.
Combinations, stick it to
Long time.
itiveness.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm blessed to be here 20 years from now, it's going to be the same thing. You see what I mean?
Wow.
That's what I
Mm-hmm.
love. And when I transition, just get into it. Just get into the body of work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy
Mm-hmm.
right now.
Yeah, the body of work is incredible.
You see what I mean? And again, it's not to
Body.
point back at me and say I'm so great. All I'm saying is that I love this. It's like Joe Frazier when
Me
he
too.
fought Muhammad Ali and he would get hit. It was almost like he liked it. Like, ooh, I'm gonna come back and
As
get
a
you now.
beast. That guy is a beast.
Yeah, even though
Beast.
he was a smaller heavyweight and he lost to
He was
different
a
people,
beast.
his attitude.
That dude's a beast.
That's what I'm trying to say. When you live life, you have to go at it, not
Mm-hmm.
pushing to satisfy anybody else to live
You
down
would
to
not
someone's thing.
stop.
It,
Would not stop.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm eating good food, I'm enjoying it. If I'm sleeping, which many don't think I sleep, I'm enjoying it. If I run
Mm-hmm.
hard, I wanna. So if I do anything, I'm gonna go hard, or I'm not gonna go at
Yeah.
all. I'm not a spectator. I gotta do, and I don't care if it's one person in the stands or a million or nobody, because I enjoy
Mm-hmm.
this like this. You see what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Well, when you do a talk, it doesn't have to necessarily be long. You know, it's not always necessarily a quantity or
Right,
a length,
right.
duration. It can also be some of the best workouts are the most shortest and briefest and most intense workouts.
Of course, and people don't
And
understand
you know
that.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know that.
And to
15
those,
minutes, you can annihilate your stomach if you know what you're doing. If
right,
you know what you're doing.
right. There was a time when I would get on, um, oh god, um, the lower back. It's like a pad that you can lay down on and work your lower back,
Yeah.
and you hook your feet under it and you go up.
Oh,
I,
yeah.
I used to
Yeah.
turn around on that, and before I left the gym,
Huh.
I do 1,000 sit-ups a day after the
Mm-hmm.
workout, which was overkill, but I'm saying that was my
Mm-hmm.
mentality back then. Plus, testosterone.
Yeah.
Naturally, you're young, you're
Yeah,
18,
you're
19
serious.
years old.
You're serious.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just lay down and focus on the crunches more and different things to be more effective. But for those
Mm-hmm.
who don't understand what we're talking about, just look at it this way: a marathon runner runs 26 miles. His training is many miles. So if quantity would made you muscular, what does a marathon runner really look like? He's stringy, thin,
Yep.
not the
Yep.
explosive muscle. Now look at the track.
Yep.
Look at the person who runs track, whatever type of length, short, intense. Look at the
Short
musculature
and
there.
heavy.
Right, because
Yep.
you drain yourself down too much if you train in the gym and say, "Well, I did four
That's
hours
right.
and 5 hours." No, no. Get in, focus on the movement, work
Get
it
out.
hard,
And
work,
get out.
get in and get out
Mm-hmm.
hard. My best shape,
Mm-hmm.
I was in and out of the gym in probably like 50 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Me
And I
too.
and I was training at that point, like back in '85 before I stopped, 7 days a week before that last competition, right? And the reason being was that I worked my overall body less and drained myself less, drained my internal organs less. If I touched it, boom, I'm doing legs today. Boom, chest, shoulders, triceps. Boom, back and biceps. And everything, but kept it under that. So within that time, I tried to do as much as I could within that time and keep it intense. It didn't feel like I
Right.
was working it every day. So I had a full night's
Mm-hmm.
sleep off a little bit of work every day, just a little bit. And I bring that same mentality to what I do now. And I'm looking forward to after organizing everything that I can do more without upsetting the
Mm-hmm.
balance. And I get more rest too, so which means I can do more. But I don't want to stretch this out longer. They'll see the number and say, "Oh, whatever." We've been on for an hour and 38 minutes, which is cool with me. I'm never rushing off the show. But I
Perfect.
want you to bring
Well,
down the last words, have the floor, and just take it
oh,
where you want to take it.
well, I said pretty much what I wanted to say. I just wanted to put that out there because I just hear a lot of disinformation and a lot of people that use terms that they don't really know what the meaning of those terms are. So that's why I put the information out there just to bring some clarity to the situation because I know a lot of people don't study geopolitics. It's like one of those, I guess, forbidden subjects for a lot of people. Although we do have, brothers and sisters that do, but they're few and far between. But that's starting to change. Hopefully, it is changing. The consciousness of the people is elevating, and that's pretty much what I want to say. I did notice one comment that was unrelated to this. Jay Edwards said that some guys hate to hear you giving props to the system of genocracy. There's they're really against that system. Well, that system is the system that we have right now, the system of patriarchy. The system of patriarchy has run its course, and I'm on the side of nature. I don't care about their feelings or this or that. I'm not trying to alienate them or hurt their feelings, but
Right.
either we get with that program because that's the way it was before, is the way it's going to be again, and that's what I'm all about. So those types of people are obviously insecure in their manhood. I'm not worried about they trying to. I guess they're going to have all the women in the world. It's not about that. It's about the perpetuation of the species, the betterment of the planet.
Yes.
To hell with your, as Dr. Malachi Z. York says, and I quote him a lot, also known as Ponda Noon, what's good for an individual is not necessarily what's good for a nation, but what's good for the nation is always what's good for the individual. So that's what I go by. That's what I go by. So that's what I hear too. That's why the Africans, if somebody gets married, they have to know everything about that person, their background, everything, because you're not just marrying that one person.
Right.
You're marrying a tribe, and they're concerned about the species and the perpetuation of the species, and they don't want to have any bad seeds. So that's what we have to look at. We can't just look at things the way we want to do things. Like in the Western world, they're like, oh well, I like this person, so I want to marry them. No, back in those times, they would like analyze your blood, and if the blood didn't match, then you couldn't get married.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't marry that person.
Very serious.
So I'm on the side of nature. So if they don't want, I noticed that, and I don't know if it was just my own idea or my own thinking, but I noticed that like more women like the thing with the when sheroes rule the world than men.
Oh, they loved it.
Yeah, well, it's time for them to know because they're sleeping deities, and they have to. The key to our rise is through the women. If the women don't wake up, we ain't going nowhere.
Well, look.
So I'd rather be
That's right.
under a woman than be under a damn freak.
Exactly.
Which is what we're under right now.
Exactly. The European way of thinking.
Like those African women that basically go and gather water every day and take care of the food.
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine a woman like that being in a stewardship position over the land. Do you think she's going to put GMO food in your food supply?
Oh,
Do you think she's going to deplete the spoil? No, she's not going to do that because that's sacred. Or a woman like you probably heard of the lady from India, Vandana Shiva.
hmm
She is like what I would consider a matriarch. Somebody like that, an indigenous, obviously indigenous woman. You know,
hmm
so that's what it's going to be. That's where it was before, and that's where it's going to be. We came from women, um, and they've gotten drunk with patriarchy, and patriarchy is finished. Patriarchy has run its course. Is limited. Feminine energy is more powerful than masculine energy. These
Exactly.
people that run the world, they utilize feminine energy in a negative way. Because anytime you think about, let's say, plotting, scheming, and manipulating, behind the scenes manipulation is feminine energy. It's soft power, but what's more enduring? What's more enduring for you to force people off the streets with your military and say you got to be in the house, or use a pen and with the stroke of a pen cause millions of people to be locked down in their billions of people to be locked down in their homes? That's soft power, but its feminine energy is more powerful than masculine energy. So yeah, brute force energy is powerful, it's strong, and they did find out that when they have these military dictatorships, they're powerful, they're strong, they oppress the people, they have draconian type measures, but those types of systems have a limited lifespan because people will eventually revolt against those.
That's right.
So we have to utilize a combination of soft and hard power. But the soft power is more enduring. The soft power is feminine energy. And though the women don't have big muscles like men, feminine energy supersedes masculine energy. Masculine energy is limited. It's physical. And it's limited. Period.
Exactly.
It's common sense. So that's what I wanted to leave with you guys with. And I know that was unrelated to what we're talking about, but I saw that comment and I just wanted to
It's
respond to it.
okay. It's okay. It's like you give a lecture and we're sitting there attentively, and the lecture's over, but we meet you out in the lobby, and it's a little bit of the after conversation. So that's enjoyable
Yeah,
too. Your after
yeah.
conversation is better than what they put on the so-called mainstream media as the main thing. You know what I mean? So we're
Because those
appreciative
people
of
are not
every
real.
part.
I speak my mind and I'm not controlled by any individual. I'm a free agent, so to speak. I'm not bought and paid for. I'm not in anybody's pocket,
That's right.
so I can say what I want.
That's what we love about you, brother, and that's the kind of
Mm-hmm.
speech and offerings we want to have here. Consistently, and just a person to speak their mind. We can't speak. We got to be worried about being censored. Come on. It's bad enough the way things are squeezing in on us, which I
Right.
don't accept, but I'm navigating because I'm born free. Even though we're born into the system and we're technically not born free, but my spirit will never be conquered by the system. My mind will always be more powerful than these little things they throw on us. Because, like I always say, and I'm not lying, these days right now are really some of the happiest days of my life.
Oh,
Because,
mine too.
like Dr. Kane said, you have to go inward. But many people are afraid to do so because they neglected themselves and they forgot who they are. We wear many
Mm-hmm.
hats, and sometimes we
Yeah.
forget who we are. And I say this especially, and this is our brothers and sisters, but I say especially to our sisters that have to run a home and be a wife, or whether there's a man around or not, you know, the children, the home, the community. So much is pulled from her, and she wears many hats. Yes, the brothers do too in a different way, but
Mm-hmm.
that mothering, sisterly, comforting, nurturing thing that comes from the woman. And if we have less of that, even seeing less of that, working in prisons and jails where you don't see as much female energy around the men, they go crazy. So when they see the woman, it's not always a sexual thing. But I've seen the most powerful correction officers who are women use that nurturing energy, and these brothers are so tame around it because that's what they need. It's so nurturing. Instead of a woman, if a person's doing something in there that's wrong, instead of going in there, I'm gonna say it like a bulldagger, yo, you need to, no. They don't respond right. But I've seen women
Right.
who are older, who couldn't dare physically stand up to one of these guys, go in there, say, "Hey, baby, now you know that's wrong. I'm gonna have to write you up for it, but I don't want to ever see that from you again." And then you see them respond, "Okay, you're right, you're right." And if anybody dare put their hand on her, you got the whole entire unit that would rip his head off. You see what I mean? You see,
That's right.
on a biochemical level, you can see how that woman has power if she knows how to use it. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. That's what we got to respect. I mean, she's a manifestation of Mother Earth, and if you disrespect Mother Earth, why wouldn't you disrespect, women? Because women are that physical terrestrial representative, if you want to say that, you know. So, but that's how these people, that's caveman politics. That's how they think. That's a caveman's mindset. They don't think, you know, they're just weird like that. But I'm gonna get off this phone, man. It's late.
Yes, my brother. Yes, my brother.
I got up early. I didn't know it was so late. I enjoyed the conversation. I hope everybody else enjoyed it.
Oh,
And I got a lot more coming. This is just the warm up.
that's right. That's